would be irresponsible of the president when you have someone bragging that they have the ability to hit Hawaii or to hit Guam, not to take steps to defend American territory and American interests. Moreover, everybody knows that North Korea has the ability to threaten our allies in the region, to threaten the Republic of Korea and to threaten Japan. We felt strongly that it was important to send a message regarding our determination to defend our allies and to make it clear to hopefully somebody who's reasonable in North Korea, as well as to the Chinese who have an impact in North Korea, that we are deadly serious about our obligations and about our desire, our intent to stand up to these provocative and reckless actions.
That's the toughest I have ever heard John Kerry. He's the new Secretary of State. It's hard to believe that before he was Secretary of State 10, 20 years ago, he was against missile defense. Now he's sounding like Ronald Reagan. Well, joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Bruce Klinger, the Senior Research Fellow for Northeast Asia at the Heritage Foundation. Wow, that sure is a different John Kerry than the Vietnam War protester who threw his medals away and was basically, one step removed from Jane Fonda. The thing is, does he mean any of it, Bruce?
Well, actually, what you didn't include was a number of other statements he made on his Asia trip. In Beijing, he seemed to offer up our missile defenses as a negotiating chip before North Korea even thought of demanding it. And in Seoul, he had, I think, less than equivocal support for our ally. He talked about that, look, folks, there's enough trouble elsewhere in the world. We really got to solve this, which seemed to indicate he's willing to lower the bar for conditionality. He's very eager to get back to six-party talks, even though North Korea says they'll never come back.
So we chose, what you're saying is that one impressive clip that we just played was an outlier, that in fact he's been his typical John Kerry self when he's been in China or Korea itself. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. If you showed clips from his joint press conference with the South Korean foreign minister, especially responding to questions, you'd see that he was eager to get back to six-party talks, that he's saying troubles elsewhere in the world seem to take priority, and that we need to get back to the talks, regardless of, even while he was in Asia, North Korea again rejected South Korea's offer of dialogue.
It's just so weird. It reminds me of the Israel peace process. There's not a lot of peace in it, but there sure is a lot of process. I'm even just hearing six-party talks, as if you need six people to deliver a message. Take down, shut down the nuclear program, stop with the missiles. You basically need America to say it and China to agree with it. What is, other than a distraction and more process than peace, what's the whole point of six-party talks? I mean, it sounds like a ruse that places like, well, the Palestinians, that Iran and North Korea are very good at doing just to run out the clock. Is there any point to it?
Well, the six-party talks, the sole objective of it was to get North Korea to denuclearize, and they agreed to join the talks. They signed 3 agreements in the six-party talks to give up the weapons that, of course, they had made 4 international agreements before never to pursue nuclear weapons, and now they have at least 3 more agreements to give up what they promised never to pursue. So they were the ones that walked out of the talks. They refused to agree to a verification commitment for inspection. So they walked out 4 years ago and haven't been willing to come back since.
Now, let's talk about China. I understand that China has been massing its own military on the North Korean border. I would imagine they don't want 1 million North Korean refugees flooding into China, starving and causing trouble. But is there any thought that perhaps that's a show of force to tell Kim Jong-un, Little Kim, as I can pronounce a little easier, to tell Little Kim to keep it in his pants? I mean, is China getting impatient with North Korea's troublemaking, or do they love it? Do they love the instability? Do they love the fact that they've got a stalking horse there, that they've got John Kerry dancing to their tune? What is China actually trying to do here?
They're trying to prevent a crisis on their border. There are some experts on China which think they're seeing signals that China has gotten fed up enough with its ally that it's going to start turning the screws of pressure on North Korea. Secretary Kerry certainly believes so. But I think the signals that people are identifying are things that we've really been seeing for several years. And one signal was that an editor for a Communist Party journal wrote an article in Financial Times critical of North Korea. That was seen as a huge signal until he got fired for writing that article. And what Secretary Kerry said is Beijing agreed to increase pressure, but all of the public statements by Beijing, both during his trip and before, really were very bland. They were calling upon all countries to show restraint. They didn't even single out North Korea by name for creating this tension. So I don't think we're seeing a lot of indications that China is going to be any more pressure laden on North Korea than before.
Now, there's always been a bit of a tension or reluctance in Korea to have American forces there. There was a point in time about 10 years ago where they were even talking about asking Americans to leave. What is the domestic mood in South Korea towards America's presence there? Are they, is there a rush to become peaceniks and to appease the North, or is there a fear thinking, America, will you stand with us now? What's the domestic vibe in that state?
Right. During the last two presidential elections, the Conservative Party won, sort of decimating the liberal or progressive side, which was advocating reaching out to North Korea again with very little conditionality. Right now, largely because of North Korea's behavior, not only the last 2 months, but really the last several years, including 2 attacks on South Korea in 2010, the polling shows that support for the U.S. alliance has never been higher. There's a very strong support for a very close relationship with the United States, the presence of U.S. forces on the peninsula.
Well, that's good to know. Let's just hope that America's there for Korea. Mr. Klinger, thanks so much for joining us today from Washington, folks.